Social engineering is the biggest threat to most computer networks today. Now, what is social engineering? Social engineering is essentially exploiting the human element in a computer network or a system. Essentially, when we think about a network, all of the devices on the network live by a set of rules. Computers only do what they're told to do. They're only allowed to do what their code allows them to do. But humans, on the other hand, can choose whether or not to follow rules, whether or not to follow policies. They can be manipulated. They can be coerced into doing things that they normally wouldn't, or that they even know that they shouldn't. Social engineering can take a variety of different forms. They can be physical, they can be verbal, they can be digital. A physical example of social engineering is someone who starts up a conversation in a coffee shop and actually gets another person to reveal information through clever conversation. Verbal social engineering might take the form of phone calls. And digital, of course, will often come through email, instant message, social media, text, etc. Phishing is a form of social engineering that many people have become familiar with in the last few years. Essentially, phishing is the process by which an attacker tries to impersonate a person or service that the victim is familiar with to gather information about that person. Could be usernames, passwords, credit card numbers, date of birth, or other personal information. Usually their goal is financial. They're trying to steal money from their victim. However, in some situations, they're trying to gain access to other systems, and so by stealing usernames and passwords, they can gain access to those systems. Another big social engineering threat today is the idea of ransomware. Ransomware is malicious software that, when installed on a computer, encrypts all of the user's files and essentially holds them for ransom, claiming that you have to pay a particular individual a certain amount of money in order to get your files back. Now, the reality in today's world is that very few situations when if you pay that ransom, you'll actually get your data back. And the encryption is so strong that it's nearly impossible to recover that information. Ransomware comes through email attachments most often, but can also infect computers through downloads of other applications and media. Scams are less common today, but still a very big threat. One of the reasons why social engineering is so prevalent today is because of the use of social networks. Social networks provide social engineers a lot of information about their targets, as well as a place to create fake personas and develop relationships with their targets. So if social engineering is the biggest threat of today, the question becomes, well, how do we avoid social engineering, or how do we reduce the impact, the probability of social engineering in a particular organization? It's a difficult thing to answer because many of our technical measures used to mitigate most threats are useless against social engineering because humans can bypass those technical measures. Best way to reduce the impact and probability of social engineering is education. Letting people know what the threats are, how they're going to be exploited, and how they can respond to those particular threats themselves will help reduce the impact and probability of social engineering or the exploitation of the human element on a network.